And welcome back to day 3, folks, of our 2024 Virtual National Work Zone Management Conference. Before we start our next session, I just want to remind you a couple of housekeeping things. First of all, if you have any questions you would like to ask of our panelists, the only way to do it, we can't turn on our camera and microphone here, the only way you can do it is use the question and answer box in your control panels. So make sure you type in your questions there. Ditto if you have any technical issues, although I think for the most part, we're not running into any of those at this event. But if you have any questions, you'll put them in there. And Justin, who is helping put this entire thing together, Justin Russell, one of our intrepid ARTBA staff, will be happy to help you out. So without further ado, I'd like to go ahead and introduce our next session, measuring our progress with WorkZone Clearinghouse data. Very exciting session. I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. Our moderator and first presenter is Melissa Finley, who's a senior research engineer at the Texas A&M Transportation Institute. She's also the program manager of the TTI WorkZone and Dynamic Signs program. She's been with TTI over 25 years, and her primary area of expertise is WorkZone safety and operations. Today, she'll be working with one of our newest members of the ARTBA staff, Jad Kabani. He's our economic research associate here at ARTBA. A graduate of Florida State University, Jad is passionate about conducting quantitative research, collecting data on economic trends, and building sophisticated reports to guide decision-making processes regarding transportation investment. So without further ado, I turn you over to the capable hands of Melissa Finley.
Thanks so much, Matt. Appreciate that. This morning, I'm just going, or afternoon, depending on where you are, I guess, we're still in morning. I'm going to walk you through a little bit about the clearinghouse's data that's available, give you a quick glance. We don't have much time today, but do want to give you some information on that. So first of all, in case you're not familiar with the clearinghouse and some of its content, just wanted to show you a screen capture of the homepage. The address is up at the top if you need to be able to navigate to that. And then wanted to draw your attention to one of the banner headings, which is WorkZone data. And that's what we're going to be talking to you about in this short session this morning. If you click on that, it's going to take you to several pages with data. But before we show you some of the examples, I do want to note some of the primary data sources that we use. All of the data that we put together is obtained from other outside sources. The primary ones are the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration's NHTSA FARS database. That's where we get all our fatal crash related statistics. This data represents information from the 50 states, District of Columbia, and Puerto Rico. We get estimated injuries, injury crashes, and total crashes from the NHTSA General Estimate System and from their crash report sampling system. These systems only provide national estimates of work zone crashes, so we need to be cognizant of that when we're looking at the numbers. One of the third places we get data is from the Bureau of Labor Statistics Census of Fatal Occupational Injuries. And that's where we look at highway worker fatalities. Now, we do have some data on pedestrians. That's coming through the NHTSA FARS. But for the highway worker fatality information, we get that from the BLS CFOI. That data is collected from each state, the District of Columbia, New York City, Puerto Rico, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and Guam. Now, when you're looking at all our data on the Clearinghouse website, there's a bunch of footnotes and information so you know exactly where each of the data pieces are coming from. And we just make sure that if you use some of that data in your presentations, that you're just sourcing that appropriately so folks know where you're obtaining that data. So let's take a look at a couple of places. So once you click on that work zone data heading that I showed you earlier, you're going to see a snapshot of the at a glance page. It's going to give you overall information of some stats from the most recent year that we have data, which for the NHTSA FARS is 2022. We have several headings off to the left here in the box that I just brought up that you can click on for additional information. I'm going to show you a couple of things from our at a glance page. It gives some holistic data. Some of the first ones you may want to look at is just the work zone fatal crashes and fatalities over the last 5 years. As you can see, we had an increasing trend for 4 of those years, but in 2022, we did see a slight decrease, which is exciting and goes to show that all the hard work we're putting into improving work zone safety is paying off. We also, again, have some information on estimated work zone injuries. You can see those have been holding fairly steady with some slight decreases over time. These are examples, again, of the type of data that we have there on the at a glance page, and you can see how I source that information, which, again, we encourage you to do. Now, if you go back and you click on one of the headings that says Work Zone Traffic Crash Trends and Statistics, we're going to get into a little bit deeper information. Basically here we give you some similar statistics that are on the at a glance page, but with larger data ranges. So for example, I have another graph here with the work zone fatal crashes that's over a 10-year period. So you get a bigger picture, and we also compare that to the percent of fatal crashes occurring in work zones. There are also several graphs that get into more details about rear end collisions, CMB involved crashes, distracted driving, and those are broken down by work zone and non-work zone to give you an idea of where we may be overrepresenting some crashes within our work zones. The example I've pulled here is the rear end collisions. You can see we have it by functional classification and overall. And you can just like note, for instance, that for rural work zones, we have quite a bit of overrepresentation of rear end crashes. So that's how you can utilize that data. I just briefly want to mention the national and state traffic data. At this page, we have a graphic of the United States. You can click on one of the states and just pull up each individual state's data. It correspondingly updates a table, but Jad's going to give you some exciting news about how we're improving this interaction here in a moment on some new ideas that we have. But right now, this is what it looks like. And it is, you can look at the national picture or individual states. Lastly, we do have that page that talks about worker fatalities, and injuries at road construction sites. And again, this is from the BLS data. So what we can see here is some different tables. Particularly, I pulled these two because I think they're of interest. We have the fatal worker injuries at work zone construction sites. And we can see that over time, we were kind of holding steady, if not increasing. But over the last couple of years, we've seen a decline in those, which is good news, again, for the impact that we're making on the industry inside the cones and outside the cones. But what I do want to draw your attention to is this steady increase we're continuing to see with the percent of highway worker fatalities that involve workers on foot being struck by a vehicle. Unfortunately, you can see that in 2022, went back in time there for a minute, over half of those were due to that type of an incident. But what we don't know is whether those workers were on foot struck by a motorist or versus construction vehicles. We don't have that breakdown readily available on the clearinghouse. And we don't also necessarily know what type of activities these people were involved with at the time of the incident. And information like that is associated with each of the graphs as well. So what I wanted to mention not only is the sources on the website, but if you click on each individual graph, it'll pull up the graph and it actually usually gives you some kind of textual description of what we're seeing in the graph as far as trends. And again, it will note that source. So I just wanted to give you a snapshot today of the different types of data that are out there. We hope that you will go use that. We do update that every year when new data is released. It does take us a little bit of time to do that, but we try to get that up in a timely manner so that you have the most up-to-date and current information available at your fingertips. This is my contact information, and I'm going to turn it over to Jad to share some exciting news about new ways we're looking at presenting the data to you. Jad, you're still on mute, so
Yeah,
maybe click that one more time.
Okay, awesome. Sorry about that. I just wanted to say thank you to Melissa for the introduction, and thank you guys for being here today. What I wanted to do here at ARPA is essentially show a different way of visualizing the data from this page, specifically the national and state and traffic data that Melissa had in her presentation. So what I want to do is take this data set and essentially create a dashboard from it. So if we can turn over to the dashboard, please. So what you're seeing here is a dashboard for the work zone safety information and data that was in the original website I just showed you. Over here, you have a quick glance of the national data, which is essentially what we dubbed as key metrics. So we have total work zone fatalities by year, total work zone fatal crashes by year, and then total work zone fatalities by state. The years that we looked at for this dashboard are 2018 to 2022. And we wanted to essentially try and create a dashboard that was as user-friendly as possible. So in the case of the total work zone fatalities by state, you can see that obviously the biggest states are California, Florida, Georgia, Illinois, and Texas. However, if you wanted to see what other states would look like, you can click on this other option right here, and it will break down what all those individual states that feed into that data set look like. And as you hover over them, you can see the percentage that they make up of the total, as well as the number that they contribute. The same case goes for total work zone fatal crashes by year and total work zone fatalities by year. You can see every state, what the numbers are for, or every year, excuse me, what the numbers are for every year and what that year percentage-wise as a total percentage. Moving along, once you get past the national data set and the national glance, if you will, you can find a detailed analysis. So here we have work zone bus involved crashes and fatalities, again from 2018 to 2022. And if you're interested in only seeing the total work zone bus involved fatalities, you can click on that option and it will show you just that in the graph. If you want to do a side-by-side comparison, you can click on both and see that graph and both those data sets in the graph. And this is again broken down by national and then the states where we have information available. Some of the states we don't have information for those bus involved fatal crashes and bus involved fatalities, so they're not included in the graph. The same case goes for work zone truck involved fatalities by year. This graph was created differently such that any user has the option of filtering by year. So let's say, for example, that anyone that's going into this wants to look at just 2018, then they get the data set for 2018. Again, some states may not have data for certain years. And if that's the case, they'll be labeled as 0. However, let's say, for example, you wanted to compare 2018 to 2020 and then 2022, the graph is updated accordingly so you can see those comparisons year by year. A similar mechanism is created for work zone truck involved fatal crashes by year. So we have truck involved fatalities by year and then truck involved fatal crashes by year. And again, if you want, you can essentially have this filtering mechanism where you can compare year by year and see which states or which years are most prominent for which states. Now, this is just the at a glance version and it gives you the holistic picture. Let's say, for example, we want to compare specific state to specific state and create a more user-friendly interface through that. You can open this filter and let's say, for example, you wanted to see California, Florida, and let's say for sake of comparison, Georgia. Then all of these dashboards that were in the website that I originally showed you are updated accordingly to show those 3 states, again, where the data is available from 2018 to 2022. So here you can see total work zone fatalities by state. Again, we click the filter mechanism to show Georgia, California, and Florida. So you can see from 2018 to 2022, Georgia contributed 411 to work zone fatalities, and that's 21% of that total. And then California is 42% of that total, and Florida is 37% of that total. Looking into the detailed analysis, the graph is updated to show those 3 states, so we're able to see those comparisons between those 3 states specifically instead of having to look at the holistic full states picture and holistic national picture. So you can be able to compare how those 3 states align for those specific work zone safety statistics. And last but not least, that option is also available for the year-by-year comparison. So if you wanted to compare California, Florida, and Georgia in a specific year, you're again able to do that similar to how we did with the original website and see in 2018, California had 15 truck involved fatalities, Florida had 18, and Georgia had 9. And then again, if you wanted to compare, let's say 2018 to 2022, then that data is updated accordingly. And the same functionality is created for work zone truck involved fatal crashes by year. Essentially, what we were hoping to do with this dashboard is essentially take the main national state traffic data table that you saw originally in Melissa's presentation and create a dashboard which allows you to look at the specific data that you're most interested in seeing and allows you to create those analysis and look at those comparisons and essentially create a more user-friendly interface. I do want to emphasize that all the data that is available in here is from that table that you saw in the national and state traffic data. And similarly, it is still in development. We're still working on building this dashboard up and trying to tweak some of the issues and see how best we can utilize it. And it is still a beta version, but we wanted to just show you that, to show you the developments that we've been working on and the work that we've been doing here in the Work Zone Safety Clearinghouse and ARPA. Thank you.
So if you have any questions for Jod or Melissa, you can post them in the question box and we'll be glad to convey them to the questions to them. Melissa, a question. What is the lag time between when we get data and and the year when it actually occurs? What is, in general, what are we looking at? Is it always that kind of that 2-year lag that we're seeing there?
So yes, the data usually comes out sometime in the springtime. We'll get the next batch of data. And then it does take us a few months to go through it. Some of the graphs are easier to update because they're more straightforward coming out of FARS. Other ones we have to do, pull data from different pieces and do some calculations to make sure that we're accurate. We always update the data. We have to remember too that the data for the current year that's available in 2022 can be updated throughout the year. So we have to go back and check those numbers. It's not just adding the new data, but data can change over time if NHTSA updates what the most current year is, and sometimes even in past years if they have changes in their databases. So we have to make sure that we check all that data as well. So it is usually, we're in 2024 now, so by the time we get to 2025, that's when 2023 will hit. So, and that's, again, we're pulling that from the NHTSA FARS data, so that's on there. When they update, we try to update as quickly as possible.
Yeah, so the question that came in, how often is this data updated? And it's annually as soon as the FARS data comes in, correct?
That's correct. And we do update with the BLS data too. So that does sometimes occur a little bit different. Like this last year, the BLS data updated a few months ahead of the NHTSA FARS data. So we were able to push that out, a little more quickly and then come and update the NHTSA FARS data later on. So it really just depends on when that's released. And then again, we try to update that annually as quick as possible when that's released.
So a question, do some states maintain publicly available databases where this information is, a little more current? Do you know that, or?
I do not know that answer for every state that's out there. Sorry, I apologize for that, but I can't speak to every state.
Right. Good. Well, that appears to be all the questions we have for now, so we'll turn it back to Matt.
And thank you very much. Love the presentation. So folks, you now have a 10-minute break before our next session, which is proven safety countermeasures for work zones. So looking forward to seeing you in just 10 minutes. And this session will close now and we'll begin the next one. Again, 10 minutes.